Hello, today I will share my thoughts on how fair ancestral karma is. Why would God, who is full of love and kindness, arrange the world in such a way that somebody can suffer for what somebody else did? Before listening to this video, maybe it will be better to acquaint yourself with the piling proof of ancestral karma. Otherwise, one may end up in a position which is not very advantageous for learning, namely saying, oh, this doesn't fit with my idea of God, so it shouldn't be true, and just skip it. And say that this doesn't exist because it doesn't fit my belief system of what God is. So I have most definitely observed the examples of ancestral karma in my own life, and many other people have even also more dramatic examples. This video is not gonna be about the examples, but just trying to explain how can such a seemingly unfair law exist in a universe where love is the underlying principle. I'm making this video in a reply to a question which somebody posted on the forum in regards to the video about the Catars of the French region of Roussillon, where towards the end of the video I mentioned that the Bulgarian prophet Vanga said that now the entire Bulgarian nation is struggling and so many people have hard lives because in the past the Bulgarians allowed the Bogomil Catars. This is the same group of people, just in Bulgaria, they were spread all over Europe. They allowed to be killed. There was this campaign all over Europe of completely putting an end to Catarism by killing all its members. So how can the modern people of Bulgaria pay off a karmic debt for events which happened centuries ago without their approval, the approval of the modern Bulgarians, and even in some cases, some modern Bulgarians are actually Bogomil Catars, means not those who allowed or organized the murder, but those who were the victims. To understand the big picture, let's see how the souls agree to these karmic contracts, on the basis of which they can suffer from poverty, oppression, or other problems. I'm getting the information on how karmic contracts are drawn and agreed upon from verified sources, like for example, people have been in clinical death for a long time and they tell the stories what happens when you die, but their accounts are verified. For example, they give precise, correct accounts of what was happening in the surgery room over their dead body, or what their relatives were doing on the other side of the world at this very moment. So we are not talking about some sort of hallucinations. Another verified source are past life regressions, which are proven to be valid because the people speak ancient languages to which they were not exposed and didn't even know they existed, or they describe in detail historical situations which they would have had no way to know about before their regression. Actually, such verified accounts number in thousands, and all of them tell a very coherent story about the times when an embodied soul makes its project for the next incarnation. It is done in the presence of its teachers, and various incarnational possibilities are discussed. Those who are present would see the body, the future body, and the future main events in the given life of that body. And then the soul, aided by its teachers, simply chooses the body it likes according to its preference and current intention of what kind of qualities and skills it wants to develop in this given life. The difficulties which will be experienced in every given proposed life are also clear at that point, but apparently the souls see them not so much as punishment as much as opportunities to test themselves and develop certain qualities when they are in such difficult situations. And that's why not everything in the future life is predestined. There are many options. For example, if they select a life of poverty, they will be surely poor through that entire life, and there will be no remedy for that. But according to the pace with which they learn their lessons and the way they live their lives, they will have many options, like, for example, to live in utter poverty or acceptable poverty, and these are quite different things. Or he may arrange his life in such a way that he's practically not so much affected by the poverty, for example, living in the countryside and being self sufficient and making everything with one's own hands. He may have a home decorated with wooden carvings, breathtaking view right from the veranda, clean food to eat, things which many even middle class people cannot afford if they live in the city. Now, each given body and the main events of its life, they're kind of a package. They're not so much separable, maybe a bit customizable, but they cannot be separated because getting born in a certain family obviously implies stepping into the lives of souls who have already chosen their plans. For example, you can't say, "Oh, I like this body, its shapes are beautiful, I like the blue eyes, but I want that my childhood is in a billionaire family with this body." That cannot possibly work because the genetic material for this body comes from parents who are selling popcorn on the street corner. Now let's take this hypothetical case of a soul which centuries ago was in the body of Qatar and was mercilessly killed, and now in modern times it decides to take upon a Bulgarian body again in modern Bulgaria, and the particular combination which he selects, body and events which go together, they're inseparable, he does suffer from poverty or oppression or both, which are a manifestation, again in this hypothetical example, of negative thought forms in the past done by the ancestor of the given body under question. Maybe 30 generations ago, the grandfather of this hypothetical body was indeed sent by the government to murder the Catars. He did not agree, but he decided, "I'll swallow it up. I'll do it because they pay me or because he was lied to about certain things." Or maybe he was just a bloodthirsty person and he was given an order and he went for it. So the pattern of this unfair cruelty got recorded in the genetic code. And maybe the oppressive modern Bulgarian government has the karmic right to do what it does to its people because this stamp or pattern is somewhere in the karmic records. Somebody has agreed that fulfilling an order is sufficient ground for doing injustice. And when the soul of the Qatar gets in this body, because of that record, the karmic stamp, it will suffer oppression. But from his personal perspective, this will not be paying off the debts of somebody else he never saw or knew, but it will be the unpleasant manifestations of his own weak points or negativities, which he wants to work on in this given incarnation. Or it might be a direct reflection of wrongdoings that the soul of the Qatar has done in any of his incarnations. In other words, the body taken upon has got its own package of karmic patterns determined by its hereditary genetic code and the circumstances in the lives of the souls which are already in that play. And on the other side, the soul which is choosing has its own karmic records. And this process of choosing the next body together with one's guardian spirits is something very similar to pulling the best match of both patterns from the vast database of all possible bodies. Souls don't browse millions of random possibilities to incarnate in. They're usually offered couple of matches, and those are the best suitable for them, in sense that the astral and karmic patterns which manifest in a given body and life events combination are closest to the patterns of the learning path of each soul, because soul karmic records are not a book for punishment and revenges, but simply an universal law which ensures that everybody eventually learns to treat the others the way he wants to be treated himself. There were times in my life when I thought, what is the use of all this talk, even if I believe in all these things, in all this story that I just told you about choosing our miseries? This understanding seems to do no good to me, because at that time I felt I'm good, I'm treating everybody with respect and compassion, certainly more than they respect and have compassion to me. I'm not doing anything sinful, and still I'm having terrible problems lingering for a long time, and I'm not doing anything to solve them. Because what else can I do than being a good person in the present? So I was stuck in this mistaken line of thinking for years, and I suffered for years. Until at one point I started doubting. Maybe my very root assumption about spirituality and things are not correct. Maybe I'm getting something terribly wrong. Well, I thought, but since I don't even know what could be possibly wrong, I decided to pray to anybody up there who is interested in helping me. Just let me know if I'm confused about something, because I don't even know what it is. And then the help started coming all of a sudden, because I was going the right way. Before that, the deities were silent. And then, as one event led to another, eventually I did realize that I am not some helpless person who can only wait for the bad karma to finish because nothing else seems to work. But instead of that, I was a confused person, drowning in negativity, at least for celestial standards, not for earthly standards. And all that negativity was simply being projected onto my body in the form of a sickness. Now, did I treat badly somebody else in another reincarnation and caused sickness to another person, and now I'm getting it back? I don't know for sure. But what I do know for sure is that the sickness certainly made me examine my root assumptions, my belief system. It forced me at gunpoint at the end. I was so stubborn. And in most cases, a guru or even a good healer won't be able to tell you what is the exact reason of a certain problem you may experience. In my personal case, if I explain to you what are the exact wrong assumptions, wrong beliefs that I had to change, most people will say, come on, that is really mild, that is almost like nothing. Almost all the people on earth are like you and they're not sick. But what to most people would seem as some minor change in mindset, for me made huge difference, and not only in terms of improving my health, but also it opened new horizons, new doors, new astral spaces for me to explore. Previously I had no access to them, because to start with, people with such negativities are not allowed there as a rule, because thoughts get manifested over there much faster than in the physical reality, and one simply freaks out when he faces the ugly monsters of his own thoughts. The other reason for which I did not have access to those areas was that I was restricted by my own root assumptions that I don't have a means, practical means to get there. It's like carrying a very advanced, sophisticated smartphone in the pocket and using it only to press the button to answer calls, and that's all. And the person never even bothers to try to find out what else can be done with a smartphone because he's firmly convinced that this is all that the phone does. For some reason, the person from this example has this mistaken root assumption that smartphones are only to press the answer call button and nothing else. In my case, I knew that the human body has magical potentials, but I was quite confused and misled actually about how to use that in practical life because of wrong so called spiritual teachings that I was in touch earlier in my life. I had too many self limiting concepts and beliefs at that time, which were getting manifested in a sickness, which was making my practical physical life very limited because I couldn't do much with the weak body I had at that time. So my karmic patterns were demanding that type of scenario because in this life that's what I'm meant to do, develop this type of skills, improve these given aspects of my personality, even if they do have the misconceptions I had. This will not cause any problems whatsoever in their life because they have a completely different set of targets. And yet for other people, this given incarnation, and for those targets, it might be irrelevant if this particular lesson is already learned or if it is for the future. Neither there is any strict order in which things have to be learned. Some souls may decide to take some a bit advanced level lessons before they complete all fundamentals. And vice versa. Sometimes extremely advanced souls may decide to take incarnation amongst very primitive races of beings and have an incarnation as a very base, simple person, cultivating a single, very basic quality. Even souls which are at their final lessons and exams in the hierarchy of learning can have incarnations as very mediocre people, while at the same time, immature, childish, and confused souls can be Nobel Prize winners. So thank you for listening. I hope you have learned something, and again, all the information about how things are up there where destiny is being cooked is not from me personally, but is compiled on the basis of the thousands accounts of people who were there and managed to come back.